Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the Wales Indian Reservation, and specifically the Kingikmiut School, located in Wales, Alaska. This town sits on the westernmost tip of the Seward Peninsula, which juts into the Bering Sea. The population here is mostly Inupiaq natives and is host to around 170 people. The town is surrounded by wilderness and nature preserves. To the north and the east lay the Bering Land Bridge Nature Preserve and the vast expanses of tundra and taiga that pose there. The largest trees in this area are cottonwood trees, but they are few in number. The vast majority of trees here are mostly balsamwood poplar. Interspersed among the tall cotton grass, you'll find stands of willow and alder. Among the wild blueberry bushes, you'll find beautiful Arctic Daisies, Alpine Forget and fireweed. The common animals of the area include caribou, moose, grizzly bears, and muskox. But seasonally, polar bears are known to hunt along the coast. The last few weeks had been a challenging season for the family of Summer Myomic. They'd been forced to leave their home while the electric system was repaired. They'd taken up shelter in the Kingikmiut School, which frequently doubled as a shelter for locals in the center of community gatherings. It was the largest and newest building in town, so it makes sense that the families of the community would utilize it to its full potential. To outsiders, this small native outpost may seem like the end of the road, but the fact is, just past the school building, the Kingikmiut Road does end suddenly. On January 17, 2023, at about 2:30 p.m., 24-year-old Summer Myomic and her 1-year-old son Clyde Angtawasruk were visiting their family in the Kingikmiut School on the only street in Wales. There was a severe storm warning, and as the mother and her son were visiting their family, the storm had grown into a whiteout. With gale-force winds driving blinding sheets of snow, visibility was limited to just a few feet. Being familiar with the town was all Summer needed to find her way across a street and about 150 yards to the Wales Health Clinic for a checkup with her son. Summer's love interest and Clyde's father lived in a town a short distance away called St. Michael's. Summer spent her time visiting her family in Wales and then visiting Clyde's father in St. Michael's. Summer was well known and loved by both communities as a sweet and responsible young woman. As Summer and Clyde bid farewell to acquaintances at the school grounds, they planned to navigate the short distance toward the clinic, but a dangerous predator was well cloaked by the blizzard. Only a few yards from the school an apparition appeared. Oh, if it were only an apparition. A polar bear had stealthily stalked into the town along the seashore and had gone unnoticed by town residents, most of which were holed up riding out the storm. Now, in 2014, Wales had disbanded their polar bear patrol due to lack of funding. Polar bears were not a common sight in the area, and few incidents had been noted over the recent years, so the urgency had subsided for the patrols. But the presence of this bear would make the community of Wales woefully reconsider eliminating them. The polar bear began chasing people just outside of the school, but quickly focused on Summer and Clyde, knocking them to the ground just beyond the school entrance. Many occupants of the school and onlookers yelled and peered through the windows, while those outside dashed toward the building for escape. The bear was quickly on top of the woman and her child, biting and slashing in an attempt to subdue them. Horrified onlookers turned into mobilized resistance as several people armed themselves with shovels and ran outside. They screamed and pounded their shovels on the ground, some even hitting the bear, attempting to frighten the bear off and put an end to the attack. This worked, albeit momentarily, as the bear pursued them into the school building. As the last person entered the door, school administrator Don Hendrickson pulled the door closed just a few meager feet from the bear's nose. The bear then tried to force its way into the school briefly before returning to Summer and Clyde. The faculty of the school immediately drew the shades on the windows to prevent the students from further witnessing the terrible mauling. They ordered a lockdown and sequestered the students inside while notifying authorities. As the polar bear mauled Summer and Clyde, the entire school was held hostage to the graphic violence that Mother Nature considers mundane and part of the processes that govern nature. Alaska State Troopers were notified of the dangerous situation just beyond the school doors, but there isn't really a consistent police force present in Wales. The troopers rounded up a U.S. Fish and Wildlife contingent to travel with them, but the whiteout forced them to turn around and return. School officials called the chief school administrator for the Bering Strait School District, who immediately sent out requests for help, first to authorities, then to local community members. A brave citizen hurried to the attack scene and shot the polar bears that mauled Summer and Clyde, bringing the attack to an end. Summer and Clyde were obviously dead from the attack, and their bodies were recovered the next day, when state troopers could safely land their planes again. The families of the victims were notified, and mourners began expressing their sadness and grief. Summer and Clyde's remains were taken to the Alaska State Medical Examiner's office for autopsies. The remains of the polar bear were taken by the U.S. Fish and Game biologist for examination, and that report hasn't been released yet. Kingikmiut School was closed the next day, while school and community counselors, as well as a team from Nome's Norton Sound Health Corporation, served to ease the community's grief and sadness. In a prior episode, we discussed the polar bear mauling of Daryl Canuck, who was hunting with friends in 2018. Prior to that attack, the last polar bear fatality occurred 30 years before this, so it's easy to say the community was not expecting anything like this. In 1990, after a fatal polar bear attack on a man just north of Wales, the Wildlife Society undertook an analysis of the frequency of polar bear attacks in the area. They determined that between 1870 and 2014, there were only 73 documented fatalities. This list included attacks from Norway, Russia, Canada, Greenland, and the U.S. That's an average of only one fatal polar bear attack every 2 years. The study also pointed out that most of these attacks were due to nutritional stress, otherwise known as starvation. They also claimed climate change could have been a contributing factor, but didn't clearly state their reasoning. In the analysis, the numbers also bore out the relationship between younger and older male polar bears being the most significant contributors to the fatal attack frequencies. This makes sense in that younger males of any species tend to demonstrate the most risk-taking behaviors, and older males will be emboldened by hunger to pursue prey they would not normally pursue. Add in the factors that humans are the only other apex predator competing with polar bears for seals, walrus, and whales, and most likely to leave their scent on the remains of the animals they harvest, and you can see why polar bears might begin associating food with people indirectly. Given that polar bears can live to around 20 years old, it's fairly logical that they would discover gut piles or discarded carcass parts left there by humans after their harvest. After analyzing the still emerging facts surrounding this case, I'm left with a few questions. What, if anything, do you think Summer and her son could have done to prevent this tragic attack? Why didn't the community have a more organized police department? What role should the reservation or governmental authorities take to ensure a situation like this doesn't happen again? I look forward to reading your comments, so make sure to post a few below so we can talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.